So since we have installed all the packages that we need, since we have also set up our IPython successfully, and since we've downloaded data and we've opened our IPython notebook, let's go with the workshop now. Let's dive into the code and understand what's happening. The first block that you see here is basically a bunch of import statements. We use a lot of libraries from lots of packages. So we also use a lot of functions throughout this workshop. So all of them are imported here. Like we use NLTK. Again, I'll explain you where each of these things are used as we go through the workshop. So bunch of import statements at the outset, and once I've imported all of them, my next important job is to load the data. As I told you earlier, there is this JSON file. JSON is a data format, a very popular format in data science and machine learning to store data, right? So what we do here is we have this tops_fashion.json, which has all of the key data that we need for this workshop. So all you're doing here, this PD stands for pandas. Okay, it stands for pandas. Pandas is a very popular package in Python for manipulating data, right? So it's this easy to load data in Python. You just say pandas.read JSON. You're saying that I have to read a JSON file, and you just give the path. Since it's in the same folder as this IPython notebook, I'm just giving the name of the JSON file. It reads all of the data into this variable called data. Now, since we have the data, now let's go down. Let's try to understand some basic stuff. In this data, the first thing that I want to understand here is how many data points I have and how many features I have. So let me explain what this means. So I'll introduce you to a bunch of terminology right now. I'll introduce you to terms like data set, rows and columns, data point, feature, variable, etc. If you already know this will be easy, but if you do not know, it's very simple. Think of our data as a table. Think of our data as a table. Each row, a table has rows and columns, right? A table has lots of rows and lots of columns, right? So you can think of each row as corresponding to a product. This row corresponds to a single product. Okay. For each product, you have multiple variables about a product. You have things like the price of the product, you have the title of the product, you have the image of the product, and so on and so forth, right? So if you want to think of your data set, you can think of it like a table where each row corresponds to a product in our Amazon data set. So this is also called a data point. This is also called a data point. You'll understand why it's called a point when we learn a little bit of linear algebra. Okay, so each of these rows corresponds to a product. It's also called a data point. This whole table is called the data set. Okay, data set is nothing but a set of data points. Okay, so data set is nothing but a set of data points. Okay, so we know what rows and columns means. Row represents a product in our case, which is also called as a data point. Each column represents a feature or a variable of a given product. For example, for a given product, its price could be $1.2. It could have a title which is actually a text. It could have an image URL here, and so on and so forth, right? So for every product or for every row, the corresponding column, the columns correspond to various features or variables or properties, if you want to think of, for a given product, right? So now we know that a table is nothing but a data set. Rows represents data points or products in our case. Columns represents various features or variables. I keep using the word feature and variable interchangeably. Or column, sometimes I just call it a column, right? So data point or row is also used interchangeably. Now, given our data set, we want to now understand how many data points we have and how many features we have. It's very simple. So since I've loaded my data into the variable data, I just have to use the function shape, which tells me how many data points I have. So if you look here, it has 183,138 data points, which means we have data about these many products or these many apparel items on Amazon.com. Okay, we have data for 183,138 products, and for each product we have 19 variables or 19 features which explain each product, right? So these are all the important properties of the product that we have, right? Now let's go and understand what properties we have, and let's understand what are the properties or what are the features that we have for each product. And for that, all I have to say is data.columns. right? Because as I told you, each feature is stored in a column in my data matrix, right? So the matrix, the table that I have, we also refer to it as data matrix. We also refer to it as data matrix, because in mathematics, that's what a matrix looks like, right? It looks like a table, isn't it? So now the 19 columns or 19 features I have, all the names of them are given here. The first one is called an ASIN. I'll explain you what an ASIN is. Author, availability type, the brand, the color, right? You have some important useful things like the image URL for a medium-sized image. You have the title of the product and things like that. So of the 19 features that we have collected the data for each product, we have these 19 features. In this workshop, we will limit ourselves to using only 6 of them, right? So let me explain what these features are. So the first one is not a feature, it's an identifier. It's called an ASIN. An ASIN stands for Amazon Standard Identification Number, ASIN. So this is a unique number. This is a unique number that is given to each product on Amazon.com. Okay, so this is like a unique identifier. This is like your roll number in a class or an employee ID at a company. Okay, so we will use the brand of the apparel, the actual brand, whether it is a brand A or brand B. We use the color information, and by the way, the color information sometimes is not very straightforward. It's not like red, black, etc. Because women's tops have multiple colors. For example, we have seen values like this, red and black stripes. Of course, this is not a valid color, but this color column for some products. So if you take a data matrix, like this, there are some products for which the color column has values. This for some products we have values like red and black stripes. Okay, so it's not exactly the color that we think of like a simple color, red, black, brown, etc. It's a more complex string here. Similarly, the fourth feature that we have is product type name. So this basically says what is the type of the product, whether it's a shirt or a t-shirt or a top, whatever it is. Okay, so the next feature that we have is a image URL. So this basically is the URL of the image. So it's called a medium image URL because if I go to this URL and download this image, I get a medium sized image of the apparel, right? It's not a large size, it's a medium size. Of course, we have the title of the product, which we saw a while earlier that it's extremely useful. We'll see again. So we will use title extensively in this whole workshop because there is titles are short. Remember, titles are short and very informative. They tell what the product is all about. And the reason titles are very informative, is because Amazon. So if I'm a seller on Amazon, if I want to list my product on Amazon, I want Amazon search to easily understand what my product is all about, right? And people typically search on Amazon using text search. So titles are very short, and they're also very super informative about what the product is all about. So we'll use title extensively throughout this workshop. We also have price of the product, which is in a field or which is in a feature called formatted price. Okay, you might say, why are we not using description? Because descriptions are lengthy, and so we have chosen to not use description, the product description. We have intentionally chose to avoid product description because they're lengthy, and the other problem is, since there is more text here, it takes significantly longer time to process. So it takes significantly longer time to process. So we wanted people who are participating in this workshop not to wait for tens of minutes for some task to finish. And hence we mostly rely on title itself, which is super useful. And trust me, by just using this single piece of text, you can build extremely useful product recommendations and product similarity. Okay, so having understood the fields that we are using, now what I'm doing here is I'm taking the data and I'm taking only these 7 fields that I care about, and I'm just taking these columns that I care about and putting it into the variable data. Okay, so which basically means I'm discarding all the other 12 features because I'm only taking 19. So 19 minus 7 is 12. So I'm discarding all the 12 features. Now, after I've discarded them, I'm just checking that if everything is working well, right? So all I'm doing here is I'm just saying print number of data points, and my number of data points stays the same. It's 183,000, and my number of features here, or number of columns in my data are 7. This function here is very useful. It's called data.head. When you type data.head, it basically gives you an overview of what the data actually looks like in the table, right? So let's go down here. So the first column is ASIN. Let me just, okay. So the first column is ASIN here. Whenever you see numbers like this, they're typically ASINs. This is the brand of the product. This is the color. Sometimes there is no color sometimes. Okay. So when there is no color, you just get a none here. This is the URL of the image. The product type is shirt, and this is the title of the product. Okay. Sometimes you have price, sometimes you may not have price. Okay. So for example, the price here is missing. Similarly, if you look here, the color is Owings Black Stone, right? Here there is a product price. So there are some fields where there is no data, as you can quickly see here. For example, price is missing for lot of products, right? Probably because Amazon doesn't want to share the price all the time. Sometimes color is missing because probably when this product was created in Amazon's database, somebody didn't enter the color. Okay, with this we understand basic properties of data, like how many data points are there, what all features are there, what all features do we intend to use, and things like that.